And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension and everything and the drama.
How dare! Look at this! How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down.
Well, not a calm time as we're into the we are, as of this recording, this here, we are about 2 weeks away, 16 days away from the first round of the National Hockey League draft. Probably one of the more significant drafts in Flames history. I don't think this will go down as the most significant, but anyway. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. As yes, we are here to have a look at the Flames' 2 picks in the first round. They will pick 6th for sure, and they will either pick 30th or 31st, depending on Matt DeBerg from Fireside Chat, what happens in a pretty crazy Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, it's been one of the most entertaining Stanley Cup finals, which is disappointing as a fan because I don't like either team. So, it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's 2 teams that nobody really likes, but they've come out and have entertained in many ways. It's been kind of compelling, but there are players on each side that I like. Like I'm becoming a big Jordan Staal fan. I'm a big Logan Stankoven fan. Flames missed on that, by the way.
Cheering for both Janko and Hall on the Hurricanes, and of course Rasmus Anderson would like to see him get a cup, possibly.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, there's players on. Well, there's a goalie on the Vegas side I don't like, but that's...
me too. Like, I am cheering hard for Carolina.
Yeah.
But, the consolation prize if Vegas wins is the Flames get their first-round pick in 2028. So, there is some upside for us if Vegas wins, but, I really don't care about that extra bonus of the pick. I'd rather Carolina win it.
Yeah, I'm kind of pulling for Carolina too. But it's been an entertaining series. Speaking of that, we do have a couple of people to acknowledge, and we'll start. I thought it was pretty classy of Rod Bridmore for a longer conversation to allow Freddie Anderson to have a complete rest for the Stanley Cup final, a pretty significant moment. And Freddie Anderson was very close to Claude Lemieux, who passed away a couple of weeks ago it was so surreal, Matt, just watching Claude Lemieux do the Montreal Canadian torch walk. And then a couple of days later, you're like, your heart kind of sinks a little bit hearing that news. Just devastating. And just everybody, I think the best way to say this is just look after everybody's mental health. It's very important.
And like if you're going through stuff, like everybody goes through their own versions of problems and issues. Reach out to people. Like everybody has got their own set of demons and issues, and you can at least feel like you're not alone if you tell somebody else, because everybody has their own set of issues. So, reach out and, you can find help to work through whatever it is that you're going through. And it does help a great deal. So for anybody out there, it is tough sometimes. That life, it can really gang up on you, and it's disappointing that somebody like Claude Lemieux had to not share enough until it took him. And I'm grateful that his pain is no longer hurting him, but it doesn't need to have that result, and it's just sad and disappointing.
Yeah. Where I will have for me, it's I well said. It's especially for men. It's something we're not good at sharing our weaknesses because it's a fear, but we do have them.
Yeah.
The other one was Cliff Fletcher, and Cliff Fletcher passed away a couple of weeks ago at the age of 90. The most influential general manager in Calgary Flames history, responsible for acquiring Doug Gilmour and for both the Flames and the Leafs, by the way, funny enough. But I also think kind of a guy that was ahead of his time. Lots of NCAA players played with the Flames: Joel Otto, Kerry Wilson, Perry Berezan. Let's not forget some of the late round draft picks. 9th round picks included Håkan Lube, Gary Suter. If you actually look at his draft, it's the only first round pick that turned out was Al McInnes. He did a lot of really good work late round. He worked the college free agent system better than anybody else at the time, where everybody else was sort of working the junior circuit. Cliff Fletcher worked in the NCAA, and of course got Badger Bob Johnson to coach. And
and even drafting Brett Hull, who did not ultimately spend a long time in Calgary, did help us acquire some players that
and he was
were
also
key for winning the cup. So,
and he was also a late round pick as well. It's kind of, I hope the Flames find a way to honor Cliff Fletcher. I think it's kind of sad that they've never really addressed that. Even all these years have went by since the early 90s. And yes, there's no worse trade in Flames history than the Doug Gilmour trade to Toronto. You could argue there's ones that you can nominate, but the Doug Gilmour trade sent this franchise back to getting an elite center and have been searching for one consistently since they traded Doug Gilmour.
Yeah, and the closest that they've gotten since then was Sean Monahan, who was nowhere near the player that Gilmour was, but that's as close as the Flames have got since then.
And the one good year from Elias Lindholm. I know. I hope the Flames do something to honor him and Bob Johnson, for that matter. I think that's been
even they haven't really honored Terry Crisp either, in any way, shape, or form, or frankly, basically anybody from the organizational standpoint. Not so much the players, but like the management. They haven't really done anything much to celebrate any of those people either. So just interesting that they haven't gone in that direction, but with the new building that you might start to see some of that.
And it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because that alumni group is mostly the 89 team, which is kind of fascinating.
And you have a few people like Stajan and Glenn Cross who just happen to live in the area as well, of newer people, but
but rest in peace to both of those. And that was a bit of a sad week. Let's touch on some Flames news here quickly. There's a few signings here that happened since last we chatted about the Flames, and there hasn't been there hasn't been enough to really talk about the Flames the last couple of months here, so that's why we haven't been talking about him. But Theo Stocksillia signed an entry-level deal. He is playing. He is, of course, in Europe. Are we thinking he's coming to North America?
Honestly, I doubt it. I think that he would be better served playing in Sweden against men instead of in the junior leagues. But that's ultimately a decision for the Flames. If they want him in North America, he'll be coming over, and if they're more comfortable with him in Sweden, he'll stay in Sweden. I don't really view there being much of a rush either way. I don't think that he's going to be assigned to the AHL. I think it'll be one or the other.
Yeah, fair. He's an interesting guy. I mean, I think I think this is a guy they're not going to rush, and they don't have to anyway because he wasn't a first round pick. Not that you rush first round picks, but I kind of would suspect he's going to stay in Sweden. A couple of goaltending news. Yegorov has committed to Miami University for 26-27.
Yeah.
Another example.
Best name in the Flame system.
Absolutely.
Igor, son of Igor.
Yes. The only competition is if the Flames draft Alex Command. That's going to be the closest competition to Igor.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's another example of Jason LaBarba and that goaltending consultant group getting a goalie out of Russia into North America. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see where this one goes. And Kirill Zarubin also signed an entry-level deal, also from Russia.
I would expect him to start the year in the Rapid City Rush of the ECHL and be the starting goalie down there while you have Sergeyev and Say being the goalies with the Wranglers.
Yeah, I would suspect. Yeah, I would think that as well. I think this. I mean, we'll talk about this is for a future podcast in terms of where Owen, Say, and Sergeyev are at. But
I feel just to touch on it for very briefly. I think Sergeyev is close to being ready for the NHL. Probably needs another year in the A before he can start pushing up. And I think that the timelines for that works where if you promote him after next season, then you can have Zarubin be the starter in the AHL, and then Igorov, after he's done at the University of Miami, throw him in the ECHL and just kind of rotate everybody through that way.
Yeah. You can never have enough goalies.
No, even this year with the Flames having 8 picks in the top 3 rounds, I would expect them to use one of them on a goalie just because, hey, get another goalie in there because it never hurts.
Yeah. And Axel Hurtig also signed. He was a late round pick. I want to say 7th round pick, but he signed. But Hunter Lang did not sign his entry level deal by June the 1st, so he goes back into the draft. He was in the CHL. He's a later round pick. Do you suspect he gets redrafted?
I view that he'll get redrafted, not necessarily by Calgary, but anytime you have a center that's like 6'6", that guy is going to get probably a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick tossed their way. The Flames didn't sign him because they wanted him to go to the NCAA so they could hold on to his rights for an extra couple of years. Mostly due to the acquisitions of both Tyson Gross and Castagna in the Uyghur trade, that they just now have actual depth at the center ice position. So they didn't want to necessarily have Lang taking up a spot, both in terms of contract and roster spots on the Wranglers. They wanted to see if he could take that next step without needing to throw him back, into the mix. So We'll see. If the Flames redrafted him, say in the 5th or 6th round, would I be entirely shocked? No. But we'll see.
I don't think that, but I mean, at the same time, I don't think that the Flames would be the only team that would want him to go to NCAA. I think other teams would want that. Like, he's going to have to make a decision on this one way or the other, too.
I agree.
Yeah.
And how would you say, like, this also kind of counts a little bit as a knock against the player because of the fact that when you're such a late round pick, if your team is interested in actually signing you, you kind of need to bow a little bit to the team's wishes, and him not doing so, it's like, is this player an attitude problem? Possibly. It's just one of those where you don't want to stand out for a negative reason, and Lang hasn't shown enough where he has the skill level necessarily to get away with that. So we'll see how it all works out for him.
Yeah. So lots going on there in terms of some Flames news. And we also, let's look at last year. So we're going to just focus on the first round this time, and then we'll do another episode of 2 to 7. But let's look at the last year's 2 picks. The Flames had 2 picks last year. They picked Cole Rushney, which was the New Jersey pick at 18, and Cullen Potter at 32. Now I actually listened to your podcast I listened to your podcast yesterday, last year's draft preview, as well as this year's draft preview, and kind of wondering where you're at with both of these guys, looking back a year. Where are the Flames at? What are your thoughts now?
I think that Reshney has developed really well over this past year. He was not my first choice. Braden Coots was, I do believe. But he went a few picks ahead to Vancouver. But I have zero complaints with how Rushney has played. Looking forward to his development. I'm still not sure if he's a center at the NHL level due to his lack of size. He is 5'11". It's just generally, unless you're outstanding, if you're that size, you're on the wing. There are exceptions, but generally not. And Cullen Potter, who was drafted as a center, is even shorter at like 5'9". He had a great start to the season, and then he got injured very early on and missed the rest of the year. It'll be interesting to see once he's healthy how that injury impacts him. If it's minor impact, then he should be fine. He's still kind of in that same, like, Andrew Mangiapane type defensive forward with some offense. I'd kind of expect him to be like a 3rd or 4th line winger who will primarily be like your quick penalty killer type guy. So useful, not a star player, but useful.
No. Yeah, I don't see Rushney as a center. I don't see Potter as a center, even though they were both drafted as a center, as centermen. I think both of them are wings. I think the one thing I would say were Potter over Mangiapane. I think Potter's a better skater than Mangiapane is.
Even then, it's not by leaps and bounds.
No,
they're both in the same ballpark. Like, Mangiapane was quick, Potter's quicker, but we'll see how his injury affects that.
For sure. All right, let's get into let's start at the top, and these we'll start with the players we don't expect to be at 6. I think it's pretty
well. And just to preface this, that if any of the people we're talking about is available at 6, you throw out your game plan, you draft whomever is there.
Yeah,
you don't even ask questions, you just take that guy.
Yeah, you don't call timeout, you run straight through. But the 4 are McKenna, who I think is going to go first.
Yeah.
Stenberg, who I'm having trouble believing San Jose is going to pass on this guy based on what I'm reading and seeing about him, but maybe. Defenseman Chase Reed, who from the OHL, who is the one that is projected to go to San Jose, and Vancouver head coaches Manny Malhotra and Steve Nash's cousin, by the way, Caleb Malhotra, is also one that is not expected to go be at 6. But let's just quickly talk about him, because I do actually see a path where not McKenna or Stenberg fall, but I do see a path where Reed or Malhotra could fall. So let's McKenna, Stenberg, who would you pick? Who would be your first pick?
McKenna. Not by much, but he is the slightly better player. In 5 years, if you said Stenberg ended up being the star and McKenna was just okay, I would totally believe that. But it's for everything I've seen, McKenna has just the slight edge.
What's giving him the edge for you?
Just overall makeup of the player. He's a little flashier than Stenberg. Stenberg, to me, is just more of a steady Eddie. Typical Swedish player. A guy like Lucas Raymond or Tim Stützle, like just skilled, generally good overall, but not that higher level offensive game. McKenna has touches of that higher level offensive game, so that's why I give it to McKenna.
Fair. And then Chase Reed there's a lot of people mocking Chase Reed in the mock drafts to the San Jose Sharks. What do you like about him?
To me, when I see him play, I see Scott Niedermayer. Just overall fluid skater, very good offensive instincts, good shot, good ability to read the play, when to advance, when not to. Just an overall smart player. And to me, he is the best defenseman in this draft. And if he fell to 6th, I would literally be jumping for joy on that one. But I do not see that any way that he falls. When you have both Chicago and New York, who frankly both need defensemen just as badly as San Jose does, as good as the rest of the cast is, he's the best. So, like, one team might be stupid and skip him, but there won't be multiple teams that, so.
And then Caleb Malhotra, who many people are expecting the Vancouver Canucks to take. What do you like about him?
To be honest, he is similar enough to Sean Monahan, where just good at everything. Monahan was not as good defensively as Malhotra is, but I think has a little bit better offensive instincts than him. But in terms of caliber of player, probably in the same neighborhood. Good second line center, potential first line center on who doesn't have a McKenna or a McKinnon, or a Crosby, like the Flames were back then with Monahan, where he was our first line center. But a top 30 center, just not like top 10.
Fair. Okay. Okay, so there's two players that I think are causing could cause some chaos. And one of them is a forward that a lot of Flame fans. I want to talk about these two players, and then we'll talk about the trade scenario going up here in a moment. Because I want to put these two players in there. A lot of people are really high on Viggo Bork. Some even have him going as high, even have him better than Caleb Malhotra, and have made an argument that the Canucks should take him. Where are you on Viggo Bork? For those who don't know who Viggo is, he is a 5'9", 180 right shot center, had played in the SHL.
To me, in terms of raw offensive talent, he is right up there with McKenna and Stenberg. He is a very smart and skilled offensive player. He is also 5'9", and centers, it is near impossible to have centers that are that short and be effective. Like the last one that was that effective was Derek Roy with Buffalo in the aughts, and we all saw how far Buffalo got in that era. Not very. the problem that Bork has is that, like, when he was a winger at the start of the year, he was not very good. And then once he got switched over to center, he was effective. And my worry is that, like, he's only good if he's a center. And how do you manage your team where you have a guy that's only 5'9" being one of your top 6 centers? And it's not ideal. Myself personally, that is the one player I'm actually hoping against as a Flames fan. I would not be sad because, like, offensively, he is dynamic and would be, a legitimate first line player. It's just the concern, like, when we already have Reshny, Wittenbach, Potter, who are all on the smaller side, do you add yet another smaller player? And, like, we saw how much difficulty Montreal had in the playoffs, and the Western Conference is bigger than the East. It's hard to overcome that. And we saw that with both the Theo Fleury era and the Johnny Gaudreau era, where when those two guys were the headliners for the team, the Flames only managed to win 2 first-round series in the entire duration that they were there, and didn't make it out of the second round. Got bounced easily in 5 games both times. And it's one of those where, myself personally, like, in terms of talent, like, he would actually be 3rd overall on my list after Sundberg and McKenna. Just in terms of, like, the composition of a playoff team, he's like 15th on my list because he's just too small.
Yeah, like, when I look at him, I think that there would be some really interesting chemistry with Gridden.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't know if he ends up. I could see him not being a center in the NHL. I could see someone putting him him being a winger just because of his. And I know that you're seeing a guy like Logan Stankoven with Carolina be a center, but he's got 2 other centers with good size on that team, and Aho and Jordan Staal. Or Aho is a bit more, not huge, but Aho's stockier. Staal is a bit more lankier. The Flames don't
and that's the thing. Like, you can get away with a small player if you're surrounding them with big guys. And, like, we saw that in '89 when the Flames won, where you had guys like Neuendijk, Gilmore, Otto, and you had Theo Fleury out there being 5'6", but he was able to do his thing, and he wasn't the guy. Where Viggo Bork would be one of the guys for this team. And, like, I could see a team like, say, San Jose or Chicago excelling with him being on their team, because, like, they already have guys like Bedard and Celebrini. But, Bork needs to basically be your 4th or 5th best player up front and not your key guy. And for Calgary, where we're at, like, he would be the best guy. And that honestly makes rebuilding a little bit harder, because you would have to, in subsequent drafts, get better people than him. And frankly, with his talent, that'll make the Flames a better team, which leads to worse draft picks, which leads to a harder time surrounding him with good people. So I just don't view it as a fit necessarily for us. Honestly, the team that makes the most sense is actually the New York Rangers, and I wouldn't be shocked if they went that direction, because they need offensive talent after losing Panarin. But we'll see.
He's got some Panarin in him. I think that there's a bit of a I was just looking at Aho. He's 6 foot 189. Yeah,
it's one of those, like, not to knock Bork, like, he is stocky at 180 pounds. Like, he's not a tiny, he's not Gaudreau, where he was like 137 pounds with hockey pucks taped to his chest at his draft combine. He, even though he's 5'9", like he is a very stocky 5'9". It's just my worry is him getting abused in the playoffs. Like he might be perfectly great in the regular season, but those players tend to struggle regardless once the intensity gets ramped up because everybody's trying to take the other team's head off a bit, and small players get pushed around.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Flames height, the Flames side do need some size, which is one of my other
and I'm not, and I'm one of those people that rarely advocates for size specifically. I don't generally like the big guy that's rated highly just because they're big. But in this particular case, like if he was 5'11", honestly, I would he'd probably be right there with Stenberg in that conversation. But that 2 inches makes a big difference.
The other player is about size, and I think this is a guy that's getting a little bit slept on in some draft circles, in some draft conversation, and he was actually up there with McKenna at the start of the year. He kind of slipped a little bit, but it's Keaton Verhoff, who is from St. Albert. Unfortunately, made some poor choices in his life, became an Oilers fan. But he's 6'4", 215, right shot defenseman from North Dakota. There's a lot.
Honestly, with him, the worry that a lot of Flames fans have is that we already have Brustevich and Parekh as right shot defensemen. The thing is that Parekh, being the type of player he is, honestly would do better if he was on the left side with his stick facing center ice instead of the boards, because shots from the point coming from the middle are always harder as a goalie. And, I used to play in net, and those were always harder than shots from the corners of the zone. And that gives Parekh a little bit more freedom to do his thing if he's on the left side. And if you have a guy like Verhoff being his partner, that isn't a bad thing. It'll be interesting to see.
I think Verhoff could also eat some minutes where I think you could play, not that Parekh is a situational player, but Verhoff is a guy that I think can eat some minutes for you. I'll just throw out one former Flame. I don't think this is a good comparison, but I'll just use this for an example. Adrian Aucoin was a minute muncher.
Mm-hmm.
He played minutes. Keaton Verhoff can do that. I don't think that they are the same player, but no. I think that look, teams love size on the blue line. This guy is the biggest defenseman on the blue line. I think the question has been his skating, and this year his adjustment to going from the CHL to North Dakota was a struggle. But so was Gavin McKenna at the start, and he's not going lower than 2, I don't think.
No.
So, and it's defense. And he's young. He's not as of this recording, he's not even 18.
No, if he was a month and a bit later, he would be in the next year's draft, and he probably would be rated second overall behind DuPont if it was that case. But no, and how would you say Verhoff was going against up to 20-year-olds playing in juniors last year. This year was playing against 24-year-olds. That's a big difference. And while he struggled at times, he wasn't terrible either. And yes, his footwork needs to get a little better, but honestly, you can say that about pretty much everybody that's in the top 10 for defensemen except for Chase Reed. So, it's one of those where you would not expect Verhoff to make the NHL right away if the Flames or anybody else were to select him. He's probably a year or 2 years away from being a regular NHLer, but as long as he works on his footwork, like everything else, he does well. So, and I think that like him being more of the steady Eddie for a guy like Parekh, uh, where he can chip in some offense himself, so he's not like completely terrible on the offensive side. But he can also set up the Flames version of Cale Makar. That would be a very good mix between the two because with Verhoff being skilled himself, like you with some teams, like you look at like Makar, if his partner is not very good offensively, you can just expect that guy to pass it to Makar, so you can cheat defensively to cover Makar more so than the other guy. A guy like Verhoff would keep teams honest, and you saw that with Devin Taves with Colorado, that he was able to keep teams honest because he was good enough offensively as well, that you couldn't just cheat on Makar. You had to cover them both equally, and that led to more space for Makar to do his things. And similarly, it would allow Parekh to have a little bit more fun too.
Fair. The other player in this realm is Carson Carrolls. He is a left shot defenseman, but played with Prince George. He is committed to North Dakota. He is 6'2", 194 pounds. 25 minutes a game with the Prince George Cougars. 20 goals, 53 assists. He's rehabbing an upper body injury. He did not test at the combine. But this has kind of been the guy that I am, if everything goes normally, my three players that I think the Flames I'm kind of at are Verhoff, Bork. You made the argument against, but this guy is the other guy that I'm really enjoying. I mean, there's a lot of mock drafts having the Flames taking him. What I like is he's got a bit of a nasty side to him. He was wearing a letter with Prince George, so there's some leadership abilities there. He works on a farm, which completely says that you can put him. You can just send him to Daryl Sutter if you need to. I'm kidding on that part, but there's a nasty side to him, which I am really intrigued. And he wants to play in Canada. And there's just a lot about this person I'm really intrigued about.
Yeah, I would not be shocked if he's gone. Honestly, any of those three players, you mentioned the four at the top. I view that like picks 5, 6, 7 will be Verhoff, Carrolls, and Bork in some order. I don't know who and which team, because frankly, all of Calgary, Seattle, and the New York Rangers need forwards and defensemen. So all of the players make sense. So it just depends on who views whom as best. I think that Carrolls is probably gone by the time we hit 6. I would expect either Chicago or the Rangers to pick him up.
I actually think Vancouver should be having a longer discussion about him than they have been about Caleb Malhotra. Too.
Yeah, and he would make sense there too. Vancouver similarly needs a little bit of everything, and they're basically in the same boat that the Flames are, where anybody that makes sense for us makes sense for them. And I wouldn't be shocked if they decided to pass on Malhotra, that they go either Reed or Carrolls, depending. I would find it hard if San Jose takes Reed. I would be flattened if Stenberg didn't go to Vancouver.
Yeah, no, I would be too.
But we'll see. There is enough. Frankly, everybody 1 through 7 is kind of in that same tier of player. There's not a huge gulf between McKenna and Carrolls or Bork or Verhoff. They're all really good. So that myself personally, that's why I wasn't really worried about the Flames falling in the draft lottery, because oh no, we're getting an
I actually
awesome
think
player.
it might be. I actually think this might end up being an advantage for the Flames in some ways because someone is going to trip up and someone's going to do. Someone might do something off the board, which will be an advantage to the Flames, right? So,
Well, and we saw that in the year that we got Perek, where the Ducks actually did a smart thing by reaching for Beckett Seneca, but like he was rated like 15th
yeah.
in most mock drafts, and they took him 3rd overall, which everybody's like, huh, what? And that allowed Perek to fall to us, which, okay, fine, perfect.
Well, even the Blackhawks are taking Leshinov over Demidov was also a bit of a reach in that draft too.
Yeah, which throws all the calculus out. So, the Flames being 6th, like it gives us plenty of options to see exactly what's available, and it's kind of makes our job a little easier because like there are 7 good players we're picking 6, so really we have to choose between 2 of them, unless somebody does something stupid, and then we get to pick between 3 of them. But
Yeah.
I don't see like a guy like Rudolph, Lawrence, or Smits jumping into the top 5. So that would be what I would qualify as a bit of a reach, or a guy like Wyatt Cullen.
Well, we'll get to those guys in a second, but I do want to ask because talk about the idea of the Flames moving up, and this is what I'm sensing. I think the highest that they could possibly get is 4 to 4. But
in a normal draft year where like there are 2 or 3 good players, then there's a ledge, and then then it would make sense to move up possibly. But this year, frankly, it's one big ledge till you hit 7, and we're 6th. So like to trade up, like you're kind of just getting a marginally better player, and it's going to cost you a lot to get the marginally better player, who might not even be better than the guy that you would get at 6. So to me, it doesn't make a ton of sense for the Flames to go up. They could if they wanted to. Like they have picks 31, 35, 36. Like they could make it happen if they wanted to. But to me, it just doesn't make a ton of sense.
Let me ask you this question now. If you were able to get another lottery ball for next year's draft, would you do it?
Nah. Honestly, the players that are here are good enough where, like, I would be hard pressed to trade down, and I would definitely not want to trade for next year.
Yeah,
like the Flames could really use another high-end defenseman, so that way you have 3 really high-end guys between insert this draft pick here plus Perek and Burstevich. Like now you have basically your defense core set for the next decade, along with Kevin Ball. So like you're pretty much good on the blue line side of things with that, and you can focus all your attention on high-end skill guys for like next year and later in this draft and beyond. So
yeah. And there is some skill later in this draft. But let's talk about Daxon. Let's talk about there's 2 other defensemen that kind of are in they're not in the same tier as the guys we have been talking about, but there's Daxon Rudolph, who is a right shot defenseman from Prince Albert. He played in the West Hockey League Championship. What are your thoughts on him?
He is basically a similar version of guys like Carroll and Reed. He's just not quite as good. His decision making isn't quite as good. His offensive instincts are good, but just like his overall makeup is just a touch underneath them. Could he end up being one of the top defensemen in the draft? Absolutely. Development is not a linear process, but the other guys just have that little bit extra where he doesn't. And, like if the Flames were picking 9th or 10th, like that would be my target. It's just with picking 6th, we have better guys slightly than them.
Yep. The other defenseman is Albert Smith. He won the E.J. McGuire Award yesterday, was presented with it yesterday at Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final. He's a 6'3", 205 left shot defenseman from Latvia. He left home at age 13 to play hockey at an elevated level in Finland. There's a lot of people not very excited about Albert Smith's. What do you think of him?
I am actually one of the few people that is really high on Smiths. I view that his floor is the highest out of all of the defensemen. Like, I view him at minimum being a number 4 defenseman in the NHL, where I could see certain guys, not quite being that good. Like Keaton Verhoff, like if he doesn't hit his potential, profiles to be like kind of a version of Zach Bogosian, who was the 4th overall pick, and he's found a career being a number 5-6 defenseman, but obviously you're not shooting for that with a top 5 pick. Smith's his offensive instincts aren't quite as good as the rest of the guys, and his defense, he is prone to brain farts, but he's also played in the Olympics, played in the World Championships, played in World Juniors. He has far more experience playing professionally than any of the other draft picks, forwards included. It's one of those where, because he's not from a standard country, I view that he's sliding ever so slightly in the rankings. Like if he was from like Whitby, Ontario, he'd probably be in the same conversation as Reed and Carroll's. It's just the Latvian thing. We've seen that where Kopitar fell to 10th, where he talent-wise should have went 2nd or 3rd, possibly even 1st that year, but because he was from a weird country, teams are like, oh no, he's from a weird place, so he might just be overrated because of that. And it'll be interesting to see. If the Flames took him, I'd be perfectly fine with that. The player that he reminds me the most of is Nikita Zadorov, but with a little bit more high-end skill than Zadorov has, and like the potential to be a top pairing defenseman, where Zadorov didn't really ever find that in his game.
Fair, okay. And then the 2 forwards that are kind of in this realm as well. One jumping, Alexander Command, a left shot center from Sweden. I get just the way that he presents himself is exciting a lot of people. It's from Sweden, 6 feet, 186, 2-way center. Has the best name in this draft. I think that's fair.
If I was a team, I'd be looking to see if anybody was draft eligible that had the last name Conquer, so that way you could draft Command and Conquer.
Command and Conquer. Yeah, maybe that would be better than trading for the Ruck Twins.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get to them in a moment.
I don't see him going like higher than like 12th or 13th. Like he, by and large, was rated around 20th ish in most rankings up until recently. Would not be shocked if he went to a team like St. Louis at like a 15 or potentially higher. It'll be interesting to see. Like there are a few people that are jumping up, like Wyatt Cullen. Lynn, he's also been jumping up in the rankings lately as well, so we'll see.
Okay, yeah. So you had this discussion, and let's. I want to save your discussion for the St. Louis part, but there has been some suggestions of trading a roster player. So the idea that some are having is keep your 6 and trade a roster player for a draft pick between 7 and 12. The two names that are coming up, one is Devin Cooley, the other is Morgan Frost. And I don't see Blake. I think if Blake Coleman is going anywhere, it's going to be for a Stanley Cup contender. So I don't think he's going to be part of this conversation anyway. So I'll leave it to Cooley and Frost. I'm not willing to do that for those two. I think just looking at the goaltending situation in Calgary, I just don't think that at this point it's smart to trade Devin Cooley. And I don't think that teams view him as a number one yet. So I don't see that happening. And with Morgan Frost, he showed well after Nazem Kadri was traded. And I'd like to see more of that just from the Flames perspective coming into that. And they don't really have the center depth to trade Morgan Frost yet. But I also don't think a team would be, I don't think any of the teams from 8 to 12 would find Morgan Frost intriguing enough to trade.
Oh no, like that seems like for Frost, who's an upcoming free agent after next season, like I could see the Flames holding him till the trade deadline and trading him to insert contending team here for a first round pick. But you're talking like a pick that'll be from like 24th to 30th in that range, not, a top 10 pick. Like realistically, the Flames don't frankly have any assets other than Dustin Wolf and Zane Parekh that could garner a top 15 pick.
You're not doing it.
No, like it just doesn't make any sense. Like the only way the Flames get like an additional like top 15 pick is if the Flames say were to trade down to 11 and get number 15 as well in that deal. And I view that as kind of a little too far for the Flames to drop down, even though they would be getting pick number 15.
Yeah, because you presented the scenario of 11 and 15 for 6 with St. Louis. Was that on your podcast?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do it.
No, it depends on like how much you like guys like Wyatt Cullen or Daxon Rudolph, if you assume that one of them will be there, or Tynan Lawrence, if you view him as being there at 11. Like if you view that like Tynan Lawrence is really a top 4 or 5 talent, but he's going to fall to 11 because of his rough season after his injury, you might be willing to gamble depending on if you know like what other teams are looking at. But to me, it's too much of a drop for the Flames to even really entertain.
For me, the tier that the Flames are picking at, they don't like. I wouldn't put Zane Parekh. I don't even know if I would put Zane Parekh in this tier yet. Like they don't have this type of player. Like Parekh and Gritton are good. Coronado is good, but the only one that I think is at a higher upper level at this point I could see is legitimately Dustin Wolf. I think that whoever they pick here is going to be a higher level player. They just don't have a lot of high level talented players on the roster, and I just feel like you're trading for the same type of people that you've already got. So
while depth-wise, like, that would be great. Like, if the Flames, say, walked away with Tynan Lawrence and Alex Command at 11 and 15, like, yeah, that would help their center depth. Great. Awesome. But, you also need a top-pairing defenseman and, like, an actual minutes eater, and, like, the Flames don't really have that. And unless they luck out next year and get DuPont first overall, like they're not going to get that type of guy in the organization. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how things shake out. And because defensemen take a little longer, that's why personally, like I would hope that the Flames go D-man first. So that way, like in 2-3 years, once those guys are good, then, the Flames will be good. They will be, coming up the ranks and, establishing themselves kind of all at the same time instead of, drafting a forward and still needing that defenseman to find the time to develop properly. And we've seen that in Buffalo with guys like Dahlin and Power, where it's taken them up until this year to really establish themselves fully And like they were drafted how many years ago? So it'll be interesting to see one way or the other.
Even Bowen Byram. Bowen Byram was picked fourth
Oh yeah,
in the Cale Makar draft, and it's kind of just been this year that he took a significant step.
mm-hmm.
So, okay. Anybody else we need to talk about in this upper echelon 6th pick? I think we kind of scoured the earth there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good, talented players, but nobody that really affects either where Calgary or Vancouver is picking. So, we can kind of skip ahead.
All right. Now, I think this with the 30th or 31st pick. Now, and it could just to remind everybody, Ottawa is locked in at the 32nd pick because of the situation with the Dadonov going to traded to Vegas, even though it was on his no trade list. That's the compromise. Now, Ottawa actually cannot trade that pick either. They have to sit there and be there. So the Flames will either pick 30th and 31st, depending on who wins the Stanley Cup. I do see a route, though, where the Flames could trade up here because of the second round picks that they have behind.
Yeah, because they do. Yeah, they do have picks 35, 36, 51, 55, and technically pick 64 because of Vegas losing their pick. So it's not technically a second round pick, but it is technically a second round pick if you're going by pick order. Yeah. So like they could easily, like say trade 35 and 55 for like pick 24 if they wanted to, or whatever in that kind of range. So
okay. Yeah, so the fantasy bookie out there is Liam and Marcus Ruck of the Medicine Hat Tigers. Now, they led the WHL in scoring, and the Flame connection in this story is Andrew Basha, who is going to play with the Wranglers this year, but played with them last year on a really good team. Let's start with how realistic is it for Liam and Marcus Ruck to play on the same team?
I think it is possible. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for Calgary to do it. But like I could see Washington, who picked 16th and 18th, them doing it. I could see Vancouver, who selects 24th and 31st or 33rd, also doing it. My main problem with the Rucks is that they are such an anomaly that you don't really know what either of them is separate from one another. And yes, like their chemistry was ridiculous, but if you separate them, like is Ruck even an NHL player, Liam, or is Marcus? And it's hard to tell because like they're not the largest of players at 6 foot 176 and 5'11", 167. Sometimes like the chemistry factor that they have, as we saw with the Sedins, like that, like if you had separated the Sedins, like I don't think that either of them would have been, like worthy of a jersey retirement. But them being together, they just knew where each other were on the ice, and I view that that's kind of the same thing with the Rucks, and I feel that it would not be the smartest thing if you separated them, but for Calgary specifically, I don't view that as a good risk, especially with both the quantity and quality of defensemen and centers in this draft, and like that being the main area of weakness for this team.
All right, so let's look at some players that are possible. I want to start with Mannix Desjardins. He's probably more likely to go to Vancouver based on a lot of rankings. 6'3", 196 left shot center for the Quebec Ramparts. Where are you on him?
I honestly view him being gone well before 30. He's fine. I just size-wise, he's good. I just don't. I view that like the Flames should either go higher end skill or defenseman with their pick 30, even though
Okay.
likely going to go a defenseman with pick 6. It'll just be interesting to see. Personally, I like guys like Command, Preston a little bit better than even Jack Hextall has a little bit of more high-end skill in his game than what Dagenet does, but you can't teach size, so it's just hard to I just view that he's going to be gone well in advance of 30, so I don't really view it as an option for the Flames, but definitely for the Canucks.
Okay, sorry. Let's try this let's go a different path. Tell me some players you think you would be considering at 30 that are realistic.
Xavier Villeneuve, he would be number 1 on my list. Very high skill defenseman in the same mold as guys like Perek and Brustevich. Just very good offensive defenseman. Marcus Nordmark, Tommy Belisle, another defenseman, Thomas Cherenko, Ben McBeath. All of those guys are kind of rated in the 25 to 35 range. Would not be opposed to any of them. Even what's the guy's name? Simas Ignatoviskis. That's another center
That's not a bad name, actually. It's not Command, but it's a good name.
Yeah. He's from Lithuania, so he might be falling a little bit in the rankings just due to weird country factors. So, another just there are so many good skill guys that there are plenty of people to choose from in the 30 to 36 range. So it just depends. I feel like there's a ledge from about 8 to about 15 in this draft, and then basically from 16 down to about 40 is another group where everybody is kind of in a similar, some have more warts than others, but they're all in that same talent tier. So if the Flames can move up, you get better player, obviously, but either way, you're getting good players.
It almost doesn't make sense for the Flames to move up and just take, with your draft picks, just take as much of these guys as you can. I kind of look at it, I feel like there's your tier from 6, and then you kind of got a bit of a tier from 7 to 13, and then it feels a little risky from 13 to 20, and then there's this right here at this point. There's a lot of options that could end up being kind of the Wyatt Johnsons, the David Pasternaks, the Brock Bessers, the Nikita Kucherovs of this draft, where they were a lot lower than than you would do in a redraft.
Oh yeah, and and then there are aberrations like Maxim Sokolovsky, who's 6'9", 240 pounds as a defenseman, who's also a good skater. And while talent-wise he's not nearly as good as everybody else, that he'll probably get drafted in the first round due to the fact that he's 6'9", 240 pounds. So, and he's rated in the end of the second round, early third round, and yet that some teams that he big, he good. So
yeah.
So we'll see. There are so many options, though. It's kind of hard to say because of the fact that, frankly, in this draft, there's about 25 players that I really like that are rated from 15 on. So it's it's hard to say, really. It kind of just depends both on what your team's need is and who's been taken already and what you've already taken already. To kind of define, if the Flames go defense with 6, I would kind of expect 1 or 2 of picks 30 or 35, 36 to be a center, and the other being another defenseman. But it's kind of up in the air, frankly. It's such a jump ball. thankfully for the Flames, like this year in particular, it seems to be all defense, all centers, and all right wingers, with very few left winger exclusive players. So organizationally, it's great for them, and frankly, good for Vancouver as well, because we both need basically the exact same things. So
Yeah, talent.
Yeah.
Is there any I have a feeling this is a conversation for the next time, but is there any goalies that you are looking at over here? It doesn't feel like any goalies are kind of around this area. Feels like a lot of center, but is there any goalies to kind of keep an eye on?
Yeah, there are a couple of goalies that are rated roughly high. Tobias Treyball, Dmitry Borichev, and Brady Noling. Personally, I like Noling the best of the three, but like they're all like 6'4", 6'5" goalies that are basically rated like end of the second round into the third round. Somebody will take one of them earlier than that, whichever of the three that they like the best. So I wouldn't be shocked if one goes in the first round, even though they're not rated that highly. And you might see a couple of the other guys go early in the second round similarly because, we need a goalie. We have a draft pick. Yay. So we'll see. But Noling would be my favorite of those three. But, I trust the Flame scouting staff when it comes to goalies. Like, all of the guys that they've picked recently have shown at least some NHL upside. So just, have to see who is available, and with having 8 picks, I'm sure one of them will be a goalie.
Yeah.
So
this part of the draft is where I'm not like, I've got my 3, and then I think it's always easier at the top of the draft because they're the most conversation. But this part of the draft, there's some really interesting options here, especially with the number of picks that I'm really intrigued at what happens here. And I think that this is actually a little bit more of an important area for the Flames to do well in than people think. Like, you could get this is like, you look at a lot of, everybody talks about having that high-end pick for Stanley Cup contenders.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that are picked in this end that end up being an impact as well, like a Thomas Hertl, Logan Stankoven, who wasn't picked by, those type of players are. Sebastian Aho is a second-round pick, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and you look at like this draft in particular, and to me, it reminds me a lot of the 2008 draft, where basically all the defensemen from that era were taken. Where you were getting like first pairing defensemen late into the second round. Even a guy like TJ Brody went in the fourth round, and like, just the quality of the defensemen that are available into the 50s, like most years, like those guys would be like the end of the first round draft pick. And yet, like, there are guys just extending deeper and deeper this year in particular. So for both like the Flames and the Canucks specifically, if I was in charge of either of their teams, I'd be kind of leaning D heavy this year to try and basically rebuild your team, because like if you walk, like say Vancouver, who has 2 picks early in the second round and the 2 first rounders, like you could walk away with 3 really dynamite defensemen, and basically rebuild your entire defense core for the future just in this one draft, and still get like a really top end center with the Malhotra pick too. So it's one of those. It'll be interesting to see what each of the teams does, but like this is a great opportunity for both teams to stock the cupboard well, both on the blue line and at the center position, which we're both lacking. So it helps to be able to talk about the Canucks because of the fact that they can just read the same scorecard as the Flames, because it's the same thing.
As I said, we'll do the second round to the 7th round next time. I do want to leave some space here to talk about what's happening in Edmonton. I did put on the agenda for you, but but this may not be as much of a laughing matter as it's turning out to be. But I mean, the Oilers are making it a laughing matter. The gong show that they have made. This is a very simple decision here, Matt. You've got the two best players in the world. You need a coach. It's quite simple to, like, you got to find one coach. But the Oilers like to do things a little bit differently and find a guy who
is universally hated, basically.
Yes,
by everybody.
like Johan Franzen, Chris Chelios, Mike Modano, Mitch Marner,
Mike Commodore.
Mike Commodore have had
Jason Spezza.
Jason Spezza, who name a player who has not had an issue with this guy. They've decided that this would be the guy to bring in as your head coach for the Edmonton Oilers. And we're talking about the Mike Babcock situation.
Yeah. As a Flames fan, I like it because, wow, what the hell are you doing?
This is comedic.
This is like, you have so many people to choose from, and like there are like maybe 3 guys that you shouldn't take, and you're going after the worst of the bunch. So it's like, really? Like, if you were really wanting that type of coach, why didn't you back up the Brinks truck for Joe Quenneville a year ago? Like,
yeah,
like that would have made a lot more sense. He was similarly tarnished.
Pete DeBoer was available, Matt. Pete DeBoer was available, and they didn't go after him.
Well, even Craig Berube, even, like, he got fired by Toronto. Yeah, he struggled there, but he was great with St. Louis, who went to the finals, won the cup, and, similar guy to Babcock in terms of approach behind the bench, yet none of the BS that goes around it, and yet, no, we're going to take Babcock. Like, like, you can get the same effect with, like, even if you wanted to go with Bill Peters, who similarly is toxic, but not to the same extent. Like, again, same type of coach, and yet I really don't know what they're smoking up there. Like, it's not good, whatever it is. Like, just really, really dumb idea. Like, I don't understand. Like, I would actually like to sit down with them to get them to explain their logic behind this, because it's not even like Babcock has like won 7 Stanley Cups or whatever. He won 1 with a really stacked Detroit Red Wings team, and that's it. Like, like there are plenty of guys who have won 1 Stanley Cup, and weren't that great. Like Mark Crawford, for example. Like, and even like Bob Hartley was not a very good coach, and yet, he coached forever, riding the coattails of winning in 96. And it just, or 2001, pardon me. It's just a confusing choice. And like, especially when your team is needing so many things, and are trying to shop for players, whether it's in free agency or trade. Like, the idea that you would want Babcock as a good idea to sell your team as like, oh, come play for us. Yes, let's hire the most toxic person possible to be the coach. That, like, every rational player is going to go, well, F that. I would rather sign it with any team that does not have that guy as the coach. Like, McDavid and Draisaitl will be damned. Like, as good as those guys are, it's not worth the, mental abuse that player or coach is going to throw at me. Like, it just, I don't get it. Like, it at all.
Well, it may get worse, because according to Sarah Valley, and I don't know if anybody else is talking about this, but the complaint that the NHLPA is investigating from Columbus is apparently not the phone. It is something else. And it is, according to other people, it's quite significant. So this becomes such a this to me, this is an absolute black eye on the Edmonton Oilers organization, which I think is really fascinating, considering both McDavid and Draisaitl in at the end of season press conference both said they needed to be better professionally, and everybody is calling out the coaching. They called out Stan Bowman in an essential way here. They called out the organization. So, and I know Bob Stauffer was on running the radio run and saying he's confident McDavid is going to sign for another 7 years. I'm kind of calling BS.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like if I'm Connor McDavid and I'm watching the clown show that's befalling me, and I'm looking at my own legacy as a player, and like, okay, yes, you made it to 2 Stanley Cup finals where you lost both times, and you lost on Team Canada in the Olympics, and like, in order to dispel the "you're a loser," excellent player, but never good enough to actually get over that hump. You look at the Oilers clown car and it's like, do I really want to stay here? And like, to me, like if I was in McDavid's shoes, as much as like you try to be loyal to your team, like we saw with Dylan Larkin, who grew up a Red Wings fan and has played there his entire career. He's like, yeah, F that, get me the hell out of here. At what point does McDavid just say, anywhere else is a better option than here? And, like, honestly, like if you transplanted him to any team, pretty much would make them pretty much close to a contending team. And, like, I would view that as being a better option for him specifically. Literally, pick any destination and go there, if you want to win, instead of where he's at. Because I do not see any way that the Oilers actually turn this around anytime soon. And like, honestly, I would be not surprised entirely if they even miss the playoffs next year entirely. So,
well, they're in a panic buy mode, and when teams do that, it's just they're very clearly not in a thoughtful process here.
No,
and they haven't been in a thoughtful process since for most of the year when you traded Stuart Skinner for Tristan Jarry, which was basically a deck chair for a deck chair at best. And then you gave away Brett Kulak and a second-round pick, and you don't have a first-round pick this year or next year. Like, it's...
Oh, I know. It's looking very bleak for them, and, like, they don't really have any prospects or players that aren't already vital to the team. Like, if they can find somebody to take Darnell Nurse, but you're not going to get value for him. So
you're going to have to give away a pick for that, I would think.
Yeah, like he is not a $9 million defenseman. Like, unless you're eating half of it, like that's basically the only way that you could get an asset in return. And even then, you're likely going to get like a late first round pick or a second round pick if you eat half. Like, that's not going to move the needle because then you have to go and replace them for half the money. And like, it's bizarre. I don't envy the Oiler fans or the team because like that bridge is out sign that they just passed a while ago. Like that, you're starting to see the edge of the bridge coming right off, and like they're not really slowing down at all. Like they're heading straight for it, and it's like, guys, wake up.
Two other things I wanted to mention on this situation. 3 things. First of all, with the Dylan Larkin situation, I think it's kind of fascinating. There's 3. I kind of think, yes, it's his buddies are on Florida, Minnesota, and Vegas. I think that's part of it. But isn't it damning in some ways that Connor McDavid, that he's not picking a place like Edmonton, who we all think is, or people were thinking is a Stanley Cup contender? Isn't there
Well,
something like that hasn't been talked about enough? But like, you don't want to go to Edmonton and has McDavid?
Well, Larkin is a different situation because of the fact that he doesn't want to play for any Canadian team, and it's not a bias against any specific team. He just doesn't want to play in Canada, which, as an American player, it's like, sure, fine. We're seeing, like there are rumblings that like Brady Tkachuk wants out of Ottawa and Connor Hellebuck wants out of Winnipeg. Because they would rather play in the States, and they're both American, of course. So, I'm not shocked. It'll just be interesting to see how it shakes out. And like, to be honest, if I'm a player wanting out of a hopeless situation and I look at Edmonton, it's like, oh, gee, I get to change one hopeless situation for a different hopeless situation. Not really ideal. Like, even if like that was your dream, was to play with McDavid and Draisaitl, frankly, if the Oilers are going to try and add anybody, like they're going to have to gut half of their team and basically be nothing but fourth liners and like fringe NHL players with like the couple of star players that they can combine together, and like it's just a bad situation.
The second thing I wanted to say is I think that there is another mishap trade that is not getting enough criticism, and I think is eventually going to get some criticism in Edmonton. Isaac Howard for Sam O'Reilly is not going to turn out well for the Oilers.
No.
I was a big fan of Sam O'Reilly when he came out. I watched him in the Memorial Cup, and I went, that guy might be Braden Point.
Yeah.
Like, he's a
no, and anytime you see Tampa Bay making a trade for a player that is under the radar, like everybody thought, oh wow, they overpaid for Brandon Hagel. Like, what the hell are they doing? Yeah, they knew what they were doing, and
they knew exactly what. Yeah,
and I think that they did the exact same thing of, oh sure, we'll give you this for that. Yes, definitely, awesome. Yeah. And I think they pulled the rug out from the Oilers again. And honestly, they did the Savoy for McLeod trade, I view as similarly dumb from their POV. Like, McLeod was a great depth center, penalty killer, kind of did everything for that team. And, Savoy is another fringy, not quite great offensively talented player that they're just kind of stuck with. And like, he's not ever going to be your 35 goal guy, and frankly, that team needs more of a McLeod type guy than Savoy. So another similarly, what are you doing trade? But as a Flames fan, not complaining. Keep it up, boys. Keep it up.
What was it? What? Yeah, just though there was something else I was going to say within that too, like the whole. The Anaheim Ducks fourth line was like $2 million in total, and the Oilers had double that in their press box during that series with Trent Frederick, and a few of their other scratches that they had. It's just
no, and you look at like the teams in our division, like LA, Anaheim, San Jose, like all of those teams are going to be right there in the playoff picture next year. Like, San Jose is going to get better just due to age. All their young guys, like they're going to be pushing Anaheim and Vegas for the division next year. And LA is not terribly bad either. So it's going to be hard for Edmonton to even make the postseason next year. So it's going to be tough. And, I would find it hilarious if they actually missed, because, oh, yes, Connor, please stay for the rest of your career. Like, we're only trending downward to being a bottom feeder. Yes, please stay.
Yeah. And the final thing I said, and we talked about this, and I think it's a good way to end, is your mental health is important. And like, this is an obvious situation where I don't really going to get into what Babcock's done, but obviously all of these situations had an impact on the player's mental health, according to the accusations. So it is important, and it's a good reminder. Mental health, very important. But
well, you even see like with Franson, like he's been talking about it and saying like it was just until this past year that he wasn't having panic attacks, and you know, and like he retired 10 plus years ago, and you know, like the harm that people like this can do to people for no real reason, like there, you know, like yes, you need to be able to push buttons to try and, you know, get more out of players. Like I know myself just from personal experience, like if I was playing in net and I was more angry, I would play better. And you know, you need to be able to figure, you know, and you look at a guy like Jerome McGinley, like Conroy mentioned that like he would say things to him and just make up stuff that other players on the other team said to him because they needed to light a fire under his ass to get going. And you know, like he would say like the after 2 periods, like if the Flames were playing terribly, he would say something that, oh, I heard so and so say this about you, and then Ginla would go and score 2 goals in the 3rd period, and then the Flames would come back and win. And you know, like you need to be able to push people like that to get the most out of them. But there's also a line that you don't cross where it gets personal and vindictive and horrible. And you know, it's one of those that like Babcock never learned that lesson and was just patently abusive to basically everybody, and for no real reason other than just to be a jackass. And you know, like, you know, benching Modano because he was going to get his 1500th game, so he finishes his career with 1499. It's like, really, dude, you needed to do that. Like, grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stuff like that where it's like, why are you being an asshole for no reason?
Yeah.
And, you know, like it's just sad to see that any team would want that person back in the NHL. And, you know, hopefully the NHL nixes that. And that's.
By the way, I don't think Bruce Cassidy is going to end. If I'm Bruce Cassidy, I'm not necessarily going, oh, wow, yeah, that's a good idea. No, I don't know. I'm not sure I want to be part of, as you said, the clown show in Edmonton right now.
No, and, you know, like, honestly, Vegas, I think, saved Cassidy and from himself on that. And it'll be interesting to see. Like, I'm assuming that, like, Cassidy will get a contract with another team, just not, you know, in the Pacific Division. And I think that was Vegas's calculus is, well, he's actually good at getting the most out of people. So how about not one of our main rivals?
Yeah.
So
it was totally yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I totally understood where Vegas was coming from there.
Yeah. But, you know, like if, say, Toronto or insert other team here wants them, I'm sure that, fine, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that will be interesting. But next time we'll look at, so the draft's on the 26th, so we'll be doing an episode here very soon on the 2nd to 7th round pick. But tell us where we can find your stuff.
We're at firesidechat.ca. You can find us anywhere you find your podcasts. We have a YouTube channel. We're on social media, so we're everywhere.
YouTube channel now.
Oh yeah, we've had it for a while. We're probably not going to have another show until after the draft, just because of the fact that you know, we'll have a few new people to talk about. You know, like the Flames media was talking to Conroy at the Combine and saying that, you know, like there's 90 people here. How do you feel about the fact that 10 of them will be yours? It's like, I didn't think about that. But, you know, like, it's weird. Like teams don't normally have like 8 picks in the top 65. Like it's bizarre. So a lot of people at the Flames will be dealing with, and we'll be going through everybody to discuss both who these people are, what they're good at, what they're bad at, and break all that down, and how the organization is standing afterwards, and all that fun stuff. So that'll be our next episode, probably a day or two after the second round is over,
All right.
and then preview the free agency where the Flames probably do nothing.
Or should do nothing.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that there. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for listening. And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. Huh. End stream. End stream. There we go.